Welcome back, everybody. Today is August 18th, and it was another incredible day of salmon fishing. Truth be told, I don't think I've seen a salmon bite like this between yesterday and today in probably 4 or 5 years. It's been a long time since I've seen it this good. That being said, there's still a couple things that folks need to keep in mind out here when you're trying to chase down these fish to find success. Water temperature, number one. If you are not in the right water temperature, you will not be with the big group of fish. So what's happening is these fish are coming in and they're finding that thermal wall between water temperature and the change from freshwater to saltwater. And so it takes them a few days to transition from saltwater to freshwater. I know I've mentioned this before, and there is a certain water temperature where that is. Now, I can't give you a number today because that number changes almost daily, especially with the 100-degree weather up in the valley and even further out into eastern Washington. So the water temperature changes. For example, today, I came out here, I started here on the Oregon side, looked at the water temp and went, that's a little hot. The colder water should have pushed further up. It didn't. That's pretty warm. So I decided to run across the washing side. It was still warm. So at that point, I just started running down river and just kept running down river. And then one of my buddies, Josiah Dar, called me up. He goes, hey bud, found him, dump in. Like, okay, well, I'm only about 500 yards from you. I'll be right there. I got there, I saw him, he was netting a fish, and I looked at my water temp and it was 1.5 degrees warmer than it was yesterday. So 1.5 degrees warmer than where I was catching him yesterday. I was thinking, it's still a touch warm, but hey, can't argue with results. He's catching fish. We dumped in, the first gal was letting her line out, didn't even get down to 20 on the line counter, hooked up, first line on the water, and from then on it was doubles, triples. We had 2 quads. It was just constant chaos. But after we got done with that pass, we lost him. The water temperature dropped 2.5, 3 degrees. I wasn't getting bit as much. I wasn't seeing him on the graph. I needed to move. What I do is I put a time limit on these fish. If I'm in a really good bite like that, we're getting constant action, can't get all the lines in. If I don't get bit in 10 minutes, I look at my watch and go, okay, they got 10 minutes. If nothing happens, if I don't see a bunch of nets, if I'm not graphing fish and we don't get bit, we have to move. It doesn't matter if it's upstream, downstream, they're not there. When there are this many fish around, if you go for a while, 15, 20, 30 minutes without a bite, you are in the wrong place. You got to get up and move. Don't be afraid to move. Don't be afraid to move. You guys have always heard the saying that 10% of the fishermen catch 90% of the fish. The reason why is because 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. It doesn't matter what you use, triangle, 360, spinner, bait, spin fish. It doesn't matter what you use if there's no fish there. You can't catch them unless they're there. So move, move, move until you find them. Don't be afraid to move. Let's see. What else about today? It was real foggy, so that made it a little bit tougher for everybody to figure out what direction to troll. If you didn't have good GPS, you really couldn't tell which way was upstream or downstream. All the boat wake, you couldn't hardly tell which way the current was going. So we had to look at line angle. And I've been getting that question quite a bit here about, what is your speed over ground? Well, it changes with each tide, whether it's incoming, outgoing. Sometimes it's 6 miles an hour, sometimes it's 0. It's just all dependent upon, is my gear working? So what I like to do is, kind of show you, if I can here, I'm going to try. I'm sitting out here below the bridge on the Oregon side, just dump carcasses. I can see if I can show you what I mean by making sure that your gear is working. So let me get my gear in real quick. See if this works. So right now it's outgoing tide. Water's rushing downstream. I'm just going to let this down about 15, 20 feet and see how it's swimming. Okay, so I have the boating gear. I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle. Right now, let's see if I can hold it here. You can see the rod. That flasher's not thumping. It's not doing anything whatsoever. It's sitting there straight. Even though I'm going against the current, I'm now starting to throb just a little bit. But if I slow back down and just go idle, nosed into the current, it stops. I'm down about 20. Now let's drop it down to about, let's say, 50 or 60 and see what happens. Okay, I got it down to 50, and you can see it there. It is not moving at all. The current is different at each part of the water column. There were several times today where I had my numbers at say 30, 40, 50, and they're all thumping great. And then all of a sudden I get into a spot where they're not moving at all. In fact, right now, my line is starting to go underneath the boat, which means that the surface current is going faster than the current down at depth. So, reel it up before it goes to my motor. And now I'm gonna turn the boat around and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because I had to give it a fair amount of throttle to get it thumping down at 20 feet, and there's no amount of throttle that I probably could have given it to get it to start working, trying to nose into the current. So I'm gonna turn the boat here, flip it around and go downstream. And no, I'm not worried about catching a fish here on camera. I'm in the wrong part of the water temperature. Remember, water temperature, that's important. Turn us around here and go with the current now. And this is exactly why you see majority of the boats trolling one direction or the other. We're trying to get our gear to work properly. And a lot of times on incoming tide, we can nose into it, and gear will work. On outgoing tide, 99% of the time, we're going with it. So, let's see if I can turn this here, you guys can see it. My gear is just sitting right on top of the water. It's not moving. In fact, if I'm not careful, it'll tangle up. But as I go down, I'm gonna feel it. Bring this back around here. Yeah, sorry. As I go back down, it's gonna get to a point where I'm just in neutral here. Or not neutral, I'm just in idle. And I'm just slowly going here. I'm just gonna keep dropping it. I'm at 20 right now. Eventually, I'm just gonna feel that almost stopped. Get the boat straightened out. Okay, so I'm just letting it down. I'm at 30 now. Starting to pull a little bit. Keep going. Again, I'm just in idle, just barely in gear. Yeah, there it goes. There it's starting to catch. I'm at 45. And if I go down a little bit further, I find that the surface current up on top here, oh yeah, there it's really tugging. Oh, that's where I want it. That's where I want it right there. So now look, I'm just barely in gear. Look at that rod. I found where my current is working my gear, and that is where you want to be in the water column. So I'm trolling downhill, and I did not feel that until about 30 feet on the line counter. I'm currently right now at 50, and right now I am just barely in gear, sliding downstream. My gear is working perfect. So speed over ground doesn't matter. Speed or troll direction can, for sure. We tried nosing into the outgoing right here. My line was going underneath my boat. So what you need to do is find where the fish are in the water column. Look for them on your graph. Always trust your electronics. I know I say that a lot, but always trust your electronics. When you find where they are in the water column, figure out what direction you need to troll to get your gear working. Look at this. That flasher is thumping hard, and I'm just in gear. I'm not giving it any throttle whatsoever. We're fishing, except for water temperature. We're not fishing. All right, so hopefully that's a good little tip for you guys. Good luck out here. There are a lot of fish. Come have fun. Coho should show up here as the tides start to grow. I'm guessing next week. There are some. There should be a bunch more showing up here next week. So good luck, everyone. Go get them. Later.